Hello and welcome to the chapter chat for the Iowa Nebraska ESOP Association chapter. My name is Emily Burds. I'm a member of the Communications Subcommittee of the Executive Chapter Committee, and I am thrilled today to be joined by a few of my good friends as we discuss our experience at the 2023 Midwest Regional Conference that was held in Minneapolis just a few weeks ago back in September. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Brian Crotty from HDH Advisors, Bob Theisen from DISTek, and Cathy Maddox from Commonwealth Electric. Guys, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
Absolutely. So it's hard to believe that just, less than a month ago, we were all together gathered in Minneapolis for the Midwest Regional Conference, which brought together not only our chapter, the Iowa Nebraska chapter, but Minnesota Dakotas, Illinois, Wisconsin, and of course the Heart of America chapter covering Missouri and Kansas. So it was a hugely attended event. I think we broke some records, folks.
That's what I heard. Almost 800, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear your guys' perspectives on, what the overall takeaway, overall experience of the conference was. You felt like this year, and especially in comparison to previous years. I know we've all kind of attended these over the years, so I'd love to hear what you guys thought about it. Cathy, what were your overall experience takeaways of the conference and being there with 800 fellow employee owners?
I loved it. I think that I look forward to the regional conference, just like I look forward to the conference in Vegas this coming November. It's a great opportunity to see people that you only get to see once a year and network with them, find out what's going on, what's worked, what have been their successes, and learn from them. That's the one thing that I think is so great about our chapter, particularly, is, oh my gosh, everybody's so willing to help you. If you have any type of a challenge or a question, you just reach out to somebody. And so it was great to be able to connect again with a lot of people that you get to see once a year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Cathy, that's interesting that you mentioned about people being willing to share, and that's what I discovered this year was, much like our employees in an ESOP environment ask for transparency because they're employee owners. Well, one of the things that seems to have evolved into is transparency between companies too. Even like companies. I attended one of the sessions where it was about mergers and acquisitions. It was two construction companies.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't in the same specific area, so they weren't necessarily direct competitors, but very related industries. And boy, I tell you, what a jam-packed conference it was. I didn't feel as though there were 800 people there. It wasn't crowded.
I'd agree.
There seemed to be a lot of space, a lot of openness, and a tremendous amount of variety for sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought the energy was just fantastic. Even for the social events in the evenings, everyone seemed to be out there having a good time, telling stories, talking to people. I mean, it just seemed like, I think a little bit of it is this function, right? We're all used to talking to each other on cameras and videos now, post-COVID here. And when we get the opportunity to see people in person, it's almost like we're taking it a little less for granted than we used to, right? We're like, hey, it's great to be in person and all those kind of dynamics. So, no, but I would agree with Bob, too. I think sometimes just hearing other people's stories, you learn more than reading out of a textbook or, here's our latest IRS update, things of those nature,
Love it. Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think there was, they made it hard for us to pick sessions, didn't they? It was, a lot covered in a very short amount of time. And of course, I was glad we got to kick it off with our chapter meeting. We got to do chapter breakouts. I thought it was so great to kind of get the Iowa, Nebraska folks together, which was the second largest conglomerate of employee owners in attendance. I think we had over 180 Iowa, Nebraska folks there, which was fantastic. And, if you attended that session, you got to play a little bit of human bingo and get to know your fellow Iowa, Nebraska employee owners and win some prizes and did a quick update. But again, it was one of those things where I think we're so engaged as a chapter that I think everybody felt like they kind of knew what was going on, and then those who didn't got a really great introduction to it. I met a few folks who hadn't, been to a chapter get together before, and so it was great to kind of get some new faces and new folks in there, I think, and really kick things off. So
yeah, I'm always encouraged when we can get our fellow colleagues or new companies to come too, right? Because I do love seeing the same faces at these events, but it's great to see new companies, creating a communication committee, having employees come to these things. And so that type of engagement, I think, is really positive for the community as a whole.
Hey, and let's not forget Iowa, Nebraska, I believe it's second year in a row, ESOP-a-thon chapter.
Third year in a row.
Third year in a row. Wow. Hey, and one thing that DISTek was pleased to be able to do there is another company probably not public yet, so I won't mention it, but here in the Cedar Valley, in the central part of Iowa, that is thinking about becoming an ESOP. And so actually our CEO and the CEO of that company drove together. They actually brought several more people that drove separately, but the two CEOs drove there and from Minneapolis together, kind of in an inviting way. And I love the fact that the conference allows for some tracks for very new companies, people that are interested in becoming ESOP.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a huge focus on that this year, and I think we'll continue to see a focus on that going forward from the association and from educational opportunities. And, in talking with folks, tell me if you guys agree, but I feel like Midwest really is on par with some of the national conferences when it comes to the educational content, the sessions, and what we have available. I mean, we're really lucky to have an incredible community here in the Midwest and a strong ESOP community that can really share. But, in talking with folks, they said, yeah, we want to come to this conference and, because this is where it's at, and this is where you're going to learn. So I loved hearing that from folks and, people who, maybe hadn't been to a conference, but were thrown in the deep end with Midwest and were loving it, and so that I think was a really, really great opportunity for folks. So,
Emily,
Bob.
let's not forget that the vast majority of the breakout sessions are conducted by ESOP companies, people that invest in preparing content and making the presentation and sharing, as Cathy mentioned, being able to share with other organizations either best practices or the errors of their ways, as you will. And I think that's a tremendous statement for particularly Midwest, that it's just kind of the giving nature that I think we all have here when we live and work in the Midwest.
I worked on the planning committee for the conference, and I can tell you that we had so many great submissions for speakers. Even though some of the speakers submitted for a specific category, oh my gosh, their content was so fantastic. We moved them to a different track just because we thought, okay, it could be in communications, but it also could be under another one. Let's move them over there because they were so good. It was hard to just slot some of the sessions in certain tracks. Yep. Because there was so many good ones. So we were so fortunate this year.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I've often thought the content at the regional is almost at least on par, but almost exceeds some of the national, because sometimes I think the bigger conferences tend to try to fit a wider audience, so to speak, and so you get a little bit less of, I don't know, I guess the personal touch that we've kind of been talking about, the war stories, good or bad. It's not always like just success stories. A lot of times you learn more from hearing about a CEO that tried something that didn't work and why, and some of those dynamics too. So I've always thought that the content sometimes is almost a little bit better, or at least more personal at the regional conferences.
Definitely. Well, speaking of the content, I would love to hear from you guys what kind of your favorite sessions were as we look back on, the conference and that you got to attend, and, what you want to share with our audience of, what you got to experience. Cathy, what did you, I know you and I were in a few sessions together. What stood out to you?
It was funny because the very first day, the session called The Compounding Effect of Culture on Stock Value. Oh my gosh, was so good. And I suppose part of the reason that I loved it was because one of the speakers was a sports announcer. And so he tied a lot of things back to baseball and football and sports, which I love. And so he just made it really engaging and easy to understand. And the one big takeaway that I love from that is he said, "Who is your Mount Rushmore? Who would you put for your Mount Rushmore? Who has impressed you? Who do you look up to? Who do you want as a mentor? Who do you respect a great deal? Who is your Mount Rushmore?" And I love that, and it made such an impression upon me. And then the other one that I thoroughly enjoyed was beer and banter. Because it was not just
I must have missed that one.
It was really great. And I am not a beer drinker, nor did I have any, because I just don't care for beer. But they had some really great ideas on bringing people together and how to start conversations. And one of the things that I've been wanting to do here in Lincoln, Nebraska, is to bring together all of the ESOP companies that are within our community and have that network just even within your own town, if possible. And there's quite a few more here than I think people realize. And so it was like, okay, this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. But it was hard. I think each time slot, I probably had a minimum of 2 highlighted that I wanted to attend because they all sounded so good.
Definitely. Bob, what about you?
Well, I was going to say, in the Midwest, another natural trait is the love of beer. So if you can bring beer into a networking event, I think you'll get a lot of large audience.
Too true.
For me, just like this panel that we assembled, and I don't think there was any intentionality. I think it was all by volunteer. There was a session in the communications track. I don't know the exact title, but it was about generational differences.
Mm.
And
I loved that one.
yeah, and certainly in our organization, it's probably true across many. I mean, one of the speakers was talking about how they have 5 generations working for them. They must be in assembly or manufacturing or something, because they have some teenagers working for them. Not true in our organization. So we have 4 generations. But the way you have to set up a communications committee, the way you have to communicate to people, the way you network with people differs between those generations. And I've always known that in the back of my head. But this conference this session at the conference was kind of an eye opener to me in terms of how you really need to focus on targeted education for those that are approaching the retirement age, and other fun ways to get people to think about retirement for those that are in their early 20s, where retirement is way off in the future. That was a terrific session.
Love that. Brian.
Yeah, I was actually interested in that one too. Is on my list just because I'm often even thinking in our office how to motivate our different generations. For me, it's I think the title was something about recruiting and retaining, but I was taking the nuggets for how to talk to the different generations. So that was a really good one. One of my other favorites, though, I think it was our dear friend Scott Storyhand's session on case studies for boards. And that's more, I think I referenced this a little bit earlier. I really enjoy hearing kind of war stories from people about this worked, this didn't work. And so it was, it was a whole session going through 3 different kind of case studies of dynamics of how to put boards together and what worked, what didn't work, what the trustees look for. And I really thought that was a good exercise for the companies there, because the board dynamics can be real tricky, right? And so trying to pick people that fit and are going to help grow your company is a big driver of value, which hits home to me as a valuation expert. And so we always like to see how we're motivating our talent, how we're keeping the flow of companies wanting to grow and not just be stagnant and things of that nature. So those 2 were probably my favorite, other than the one I spoke at. I know that was really, really loved by most, but no, just kidding. But I digress.
Brian, interesting point about board dynamics, and I wish I would have attended that because I too like hearing those types of war stories. But I think for a lot of ESOP companies, particularly when they have a single proprietary owner that sells to the ESOP, boards are probably a new thing. They're not very common in. Well, there's a board, sure, but the president, secretary, and treasurer is all the same person. At least that's the way it was in our organization. And so introducing boards to the environment is new for the employees. I know when we introduced our board, a lot of our employees thought, okay, well, how are they going to be involved in the day-to-day? And we had to really educate on the fact that they're not involved in the day-to-day. They provide guidance at a high level. And other type of influence, but they're not new employees per se. They're more to keep us in line, so to speak, and make sure that we meet our objectives.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that I liked that they did differently this year was they interspersed roundtables throughout the day. I really enjoyed that because a lot of the times when I don't know if you do it first thing in the morning or you have it during lunchtime type of thing, you don't get quite as good of involvement and interaction. And I did attend, I'm not a marketing person, but I did attend the marketing roundtable just because I wanted to hear more about, how do you market certain things? And I wanted to be able to take back some of that information to our marketing department. And I loved that they did that this year with those roundtables throughout both days. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, Cathy, you and I were in several of those together, and I really enjoyed that as a marketing person, and of course, led by our good friend Melanie Stonewall. I think it was great to get folks together and just sharing ideas, and that's always something I love, which is why I was really pleased I got to help be a leader in the comms roundtable on Wednesday before everything kind of kicked off, and we had a great group. I know, Bob, you were in there as well, and get to see folks come together and share ideas. And, it was lightning fast. We were moving, but I think people were really getting the chance to kind of share, and I loved being able to walk up to a group and say, tell me your struggles, tell me your obstacles. Like, that's what we're here for, is to share and, share ideas and, help you out, and so I saw a lot of that happening in those roundtables. One of my favorite sessions too that I got to attend at the very end of Friday was led by, again, our good friend Chris Paxton, and it was a roundtable talking about how to win an award and how to be company of the year, how to be employer of the year, how to win an ACE award, and so it was a great a small group, but it was really great to kind of really just pick brains as to what that looks like and how it helps your company, and what the draw is. We had some younger folks in the group who were like, how do I get our leadership to care about these things? And we're like, do they not like free publicity? We're like, what do you like? We're all kind of scratching our heads. And so we were like, just, hammered down, and we're like giving them all these ideas of how to approach this with their leadership and how to get them to care about these things, and that there is ROI here and it's worth it. And, and that these things matter, and that recognition matters for your employee owners. Right. That was, I think, a big thread I saw throughout some of the sessions as well, is about recognizing your employee owners and engaging them. One of the other sessions that I loved, and that we are still talking about here at Razor, is a session that was on Friday morning. Myself and Angie Hoover, our COO here at Razor and president of the Iowa Nebraska chapter, attended together. And it was about wealth building and what that looks like across different generations. And it was a financial advisor who does this for a living, and then two individuals who help their company employee owners navigate benefits and things like that. And they did real case studies and showed, the impact of employee ownership on wealth building at various stages. And, the way that they talked about it was just so engaging and so made sense no matter what point of life you were at. And I know we just mentioned this about how do you get, the 20 somethings to think about these things, and so, and as a 20 something, I said, hey, I enjoyed this, and this is what I got out of it. And so, we're trying to figure out ways to engage and get that information in the way that they presented it here at Razor, so that we can really get our folks thinking and talking about it, instead of talking about retirement, talking about wealth building, those different terminologies and how that works. So yeah, I think there was some really, really impactful sessions, that really spoke to various groups of people, which I thought was really great. And as a speaker at this conference, I think that, it was a great opportunity to just get folks involved. I got the chance to talk about podcasting, and here we are. Surprise, surprise. But
well, you're a trailblazer, right?
Yes, she is.
Sure, we'll take that. But and so hearing from folks sense that want to start their own podcast, that's the stuff I love, and why I get involved and get engaged in these conferences and want to share, because now I'm like, okay, great, I can't wait to see what other folks do, and I can learn from them and pick their brains, and all of that fun stuff. So I think it's always great. And so any other big takeaways, you guys? What kind of things that you're excited to kind of bring back to what you guys do in your day-to-day and in your companies? Any kind of big things that you're looking to tackle, and overarching topics that you're looking to expand upon with your own groups?
Well, Emily, the first thing I want to mention is that you and I share with Melanie seats on the, I guess, subcommittee for communications at the chapter level. And I want to make sure that I'm not in the doghouse, because I did not attend Melanie's session. And so I hope that doesn't reflect badly.
We'll give you a pass, Bob. We'll give you a pass.
In terms of biggest takeaway, and we actually touched on this earlier, transparency. That is a keen issue for our organization. As part of a leadership team member here at DISTek, one of the things we struggle with is or have a tendency to struggle with is how much is the right amount to share. We are an entrepreneurial operating system company, EOS, Traction, and so
Yes.
we share a tremendous amount. And in fact, I think what I learned from the conference was we're way further to, if you will, the right side of sharing than to the not sharing side. Right side is probably the incorrect term, but point is that I think we're doing a lot of things right. Obviously, there's some things that we're going to protect. Salary information, for instance, we're going to keep close to the vest. But I think transparency is a key thing, and hearing these companies share some of their intimate data with us as competing or other ESOP companies is pretty exciting, knowing that transparency is an important and very important subject for most ESOP companies.
Yeah, I agree. We also are EOS in our company, and I think that introducing EOS within our company within a year of becoming employee owned, oh my gosh, I think the two things go so well side by side, and I think they help each other so much with being successful. I think my one, and I don't even know what to call it. Every year we take our entire ownership committee to a conference. It is one way that we reward them for their hard work and with everything. And usually they go to the regional conference. So last year we did take them to Milwaukee. This year we happened to take them to a conference that was held in Kansas City in April, which was a great experience for them. And geographically, it was great. It's only 3 hours from Lincoln and Omaha and Des Moines. But I really wish that they would have been at the Minneapolis conference because I think that they would have gotten even more out of it. So I'm looking forward to next year's regional conference in Kansas City, because I think that's the one that our entire committee will get to attend.
Absolutely. Brian, how about you?
I think my biggest takeaway was probably two-pronged. One, just communication. I think the more the companies are speaking and talking to each other with their employees, the more you're hearing these success stories. And then also that just the community itself seems to be thriving, right? Like we're seeing new ESOPs, we're seeing more successful stories, more attendance. I mean, just across the board, it's great from a community standpoint to see so many people get excited about something like a conference, right? So, and it's not just that; it's creating successful companies, it's creating successful culture, and it all kind of rolls together when you're talking about what makes a successful ESOP.
Absolutely. Cathy.
One of the times when I happened to be standing out, I was actually eating. I can't remember what it was I was eating, but it was good. And I was standing kind of outside by where the vendor area was. A gal came up and we started chatting, and she was struggling. She was in a role of CFO at a company, had been there less than a year, and she had some serious struggles. And she was asking me some questions, and I said, Minneapolis has a great chapter. She had no idea that they had a chapter. And I said, you have this whole world of people that you can reach out to with the chapter. And so I gave her the person's name, to get in touch with. And I thought, gosh, how many other people out there are not aware that there are these chapters that make up this region that are out there to help them. And I that's been on my mind ever since. Not just the great things about some of the breakouts, but also how many other people do not know that we have an Iowa, Nebraska chapter that, as Bob said, is so transparent, so willing to be helpful, will do anything. And with that transparency of, we tried this didn't work. I wouldn't try it if I were you. But I thought, gosh, how much more can we get out there about even our own chapter?
Absolutely. Yeah, I ran into a few folks at the chapter breakout, and there was a gal who her company's not based in Iowa, but she is, and they have several offices in Iowa. But she was trying to figure out how to get more involved. She's like, "Am I supposed to be here?" And I'm like, "Heck yes, you're supposed to be here." I'm like, "We want you here." And so I know that so immediately I didn't know the answer, so we took it, to higher ups and said, "Hey, is there something going on that we can help this?" And we found out that yes, the chapter is looking at some of those companies that are kind of spread out, that aren't, in the same chapter necessarily. All the locations aren't, and how do we get them involved? And we said, here in Iowa, Nebraska, we don't care. Come on over. We want to invite you to our events. We're happy to have you. And because again, we're all employee owners at the end of the day. So I think that was a huge takeaway as well for me, Cathy, from the conference is, how many new folks, it was their first time attending, or they hadn't really, they're just there to learn. Their company sent them there, and said they should go, but they didn't really know what it was all about, kind of thing. And, not knowing the chapter. And I always love when I'm hanging out with you guys, my ESOP besties, and people get us confused, and they're like, "Oh, you guys don't work for the same company?" We're like, no, we don't. And they're like, "Wait, what?" Well, I'm like, there's 4 different companies represented here, but we're all sitting there chatting like we all work together every day, right? And that's what I love about those conferences, is getting to connect and hang out with those folks and getting it to make it seem like we're all together anyways. I think that just is a testament to what the ESOP community is all about.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow.
I love it. Bob.
I can't help but say, but selfishly, I got involved in the chapter itself, the Iowa, Nebraska chapter, but almost selfishly, because guess what? It's another opportunity to learn more information, to create some besties, using a younger person's term. I don't know that I've ever used that term before, but thank you, and be able to learn, capture more information, and then take it back to your own organization. The cost for the entry fee for being a part of the chapter is participation. That's it. I mean, once you're a part of the ESOP Association, pay your annual dues. It's all there available to you. We have an office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and so guess what? we kind of double dip a little bit with chapters. So some of our people from Milwaukee have gone to chapter events over on the Milwaukee side, or excuse me, on the Wisconsin side. So yeah, I would encourage anybody and everybody, if you want to better your environment, and create a network environment, no better place than the ESOP chapter in the region.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's a natural segue then into talking about why attendance and engagement in conferences like this and in the chapter as a whole is important. Why do you guys think that this is impactful? Why do you think that companies and employee owners should care about this? Cathy, I'll start with you.
Oh gosh. There's a couple things that I love about going to the conferences, being involved in everything. You know, one of the things that we haven't talked about that I greatly enjoy when I go to any of the conferences is touching base with our providers. You know, you talk to them on the phone, or they might come in and do your audit, or it's time to get your statements every year, so you have a little bit more conversation with them. But it's so nice to just stand and have a conversation with them about some other things other than the valuation process or something like that, just to pick their brain a little bit more. I very, very much enjoy that opportunity to spend some time with our providers, because it doesn't happen often enough, I think. The other thing, I think, Emily, it's so cute when you said we were besties. This networking, this whole group of people that you are a part of, whether it's at your local chapter or even at the conference itself, you all might be at a different point in your life with where you're at on your journey for your career, or where you're at with involvement in your company. But yet we're all on the same level playing field when we're at this conference, because we're all employee owners, every single one of us. Somebody might be at 20%, somebody might be at 100%, but we are all employee owners. And I love that, because you just feel like you're surrounded by this village that wants to help you to succeed in whatever it is that you're doing. It's such a great network, such a great network.
Absolutely, Cathy. Love it. Brian, how about you from the professional side of things? Would love to hear what your takeaway is.
So I might have a little different perspective, just because I
Mhm.
work with over 100 different ESOP companies every year, right? And so the reason I encourage them to go to these conferences is primarily because I go into these companies on, let's say, a site visit once a year, and I will meet a brand new employee who either, one, doesn't believe the ESOP is a true benefit to them, or two, thinks it's like fake money that's just paid out at some point in time, like a 401k that doesn't exist or something. And boy, I mean, that's almost painful to hear, even from the service provider type of thing. And so I got to go talk to management and say that, this is why we need communication committees. This is why, having employees go to these conferences and come back with that feedback is almost more important than having 10 other meetings where it's coming from management, right? Like, if you're having that word of mouth from a fellow employee, I think that hits home to the other employees so much more than having someone from management, not preach, but go through that same type of speech. And so it's such a small thing to even bring the average line employee or someone on the communication committee to these things. But I think it's a severely undervalued asset when that employee comes back and talks about how much they learned, all these success stories they heard about other ESOPs and things of that nature. And so that really is why I encourage them to try to get people to go, because usually it's like the president or CFO tries to make time the first conference to go. They see how great it is. They start bringing other employees, things of that nature. You got to get them to dip their toe in, though, right? Because otherwise, it's like they're just overwhelmed, kind of like the employee you ran into, Emily. They're like, "Well, what am I doing here? Everyone knows everyone. I don't know what to do." And so it's just trying to get them into the flow, and then, like we see, they just tend to grow and thrive from there.
Absolutely. Bob, you already touched on this a little bit, but what do you think the, takeaway is for why you guys are engaged and why you think it's important to attend conferences and events?
Well, very similar to our, we have an educational track, we call it DISTek U, and 105 is all about ESOP. And we just instituted that here in 2023. And what we've done is we know, and people that are in ESOP companies know that there's a benefit, as Brian said, there's a financial benefit that people receive. Unfortunately, they typically don't receive that benefit until they leave the organization. So that's at the end of their journey. What we wanted to do, in fact, we designed our course specifically for this. We shortened that segment of the conversation. Everybody already knows that. That's very factual. Here's what the valuation is. Here's how you get your certificate. Here's what it's worth, and what have you. Very factual. There it is. The rest of it is where the power is, and that's the engagement. That's the ideation that happens. That's people bringing forward ideas, being excited about coming to work every day, and getting that energy that Cathy mentioned at the conference, and coming back. And boy, if you tell one person about that, and all of a sudden it starts peeling off on people. We know it, we feel it. A couple of years ago, this Midwest conference wasn't 800 people.
Yeah.
Now it's 800 people.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, the quantity of number of ESOPs across the nation is actually shrinking a little bit. I think the volume of people involved in ESOPs as employee owners is remaining the same or growing. But we have more people. Well, why is that? I think it's because more and more people are realizing the residual benefit of an ESOP. It's not just what the company does for the employees, but it's what the employees or owners can do for the company.
Love that. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, that's why we love having these conversations, and sharing, what the impact was, because obviously not everybody can go to the conference. And so we want to share that excitement and engagement and why it's important, with everybody who can and wants to hear about it. And that's what we saw here at Razor, was wanting to share that information. And I'll never forget our very first podcast, which was a national recap podcast last year. And it was me and Angie talking, and, and we got to talk about what we did in DC, and, all of the engagement we got to do and the advocacy and all of that great stuff. And I had one of our home health nurses come up to me, who I happen to know. I went to high school with her children, come up to me and in near tears tell me how incredible she thought it was that little me from Monticello, Iowa, got to go and represent our company, on the Hill, with politicians, and that, I was a face for the company and a voice for the company, and doing that on her behalf as well as all the other employee owners' behalf. And, and then we got to come back and share it, and that she was listening to the podcast and she thought it was so great, and she didn't know that we got to do that stuff. She had no clue that that's what we were doing. I think it's also tough when you're sending folks, and it's oftentimes leadership, right, that gets to go to conferences and do things, and they get to do that fun stuff and nobody else does. And that's why we try to make it, a point to share that, and that it's worth it. It's worth it because we're bringing back these ideas. We're bringing back this engagement opportunities, these educational opportunities to the company to share with all of you. And so, we love our engagement, within the association. I don't think I was given a choice. I was told. But I don't regret it one bit. Thank you. I don't regret it one bit. It was the best voluntold I've ever had. So, I think, it's well worth it. And I got the chance at the conference to engage with a few other folks who, again, they're like, how do I get involved? Give me a call. That's all I had to say was give me a call. We'll get you in. We'll get you hooked up. We are always looking for folks who want to get engaged and get involved. So, of course, depending on your listeners, if you want to get involved in the chapter, reach out to any of us here. Any of us can get you involved, and we'd love to see some more engagement from employee-owned companies across the Iowa, Nebraska chapter. So, guys, thanks so much for chatting with me about this. This has been so fun. I always love getting together with our folks and, just kind of downloading on all the great and cool stuff that we got to experience and get to do. I think it's so great. And so I appreciate you all taking a little bit of time out of your day to chat and share. And of course, thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this recap podcast and that you'll continue to tune into the chapter chat for more great information about the chapter and employee ownership. And so we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks.